We're going to have some Q&A right now.
My question is, you said that you had people being basically drones. They were putting sauce in. They had no. So how did you solve the problem?
Yeah, good.
That's a good one.
Question. That's good. So what we did is we actually ended up engaging with the Lean Enterprise Institute, and we ended up working with them, and we're actually one of 25 co-learning partners with them. So it's actually like it's Kroger, Godiva, Legal Seafood, University of Michigan Health. I mean, there's some really amazing. We're like the smallest by a factor of 10, but we recognized how important it was. So what they ended up coming in and working with us and our team, and we actually got rid of all those conveyors. And what we ended up doing is we put what we call these pods, these two-man pods, in our production facility. And so now what we have is for every single item, they work as a team. They have a walk path. They work together. So if one person kind of doesn't do something the way it needs to be done, the other person says, "Hey, you need to kind of help me out here." So it's very team-oriented, and it's very goal-oriented. So they're finishing a certain meal that day, and they're working it's just the two of them working together. So that's one area. And then we really kind of instituted what we call the golden triangle, which is, standardized work, trying to get everything super standardized, and then visual management. So everything is very visual in our organization. We do use a lot of what we call glass walls, so you can see everything in front of you. You can see all the metrics and information, and that creates accountability management. So everybody's involved in the information. Everybody knows what's going on in the business. So it became much more inclusive.
Thank you. Any other questions? Maybe next time, Jimmy. No, I'm just kidding.
I have a question.
We had a lady in the back. I'll go to her first before you, Jimmy.
I have a question for John. You mentioned a partnership with Kaiser regarding transplant. How do you pick your partners and why?
That's a great question as well. How do we pick our partners and why? Well, two probably primary drivers. The first, from my perspective, is, so I'll put this in one bucket, values and culture is the first thing that we look at. So the lens that I look at is, do we have similar values and a culture to the partner or the potential partner? Because our feeling is if we don't, if you look at how partnerships break apart, they break apart primarily because of culture and values. I mean, yes, there's economics and all that goes into it, but a lot of these partnerships fail because there's a misalignment in the culture and the values. So that's one piece of it. The other piece that we look at is, I'm not a believer in that we've got to do everything ourselves, right? So I do believe in partnering. So when we look at all of our core competencies and we look at what we do really well, we also identify our gaps and we ask a simple question. Can we scale to do it ourselves, or should we go to somebody who's already done it? So I'll give you a quick example. IBM Watson Health. I come on the East Coast. I established a very deep relationship with IBM Health, or IBM Watson. We're going to be using them to engage us in sort of a new way in engaging our consumer, our patient. Healthcare in our country, and particularly in Tampa, is still very transactionally oriented. We got to move away from the transactionally oriented approach, and we have to establish deep, meaningful relationships like you've done, right? You have deep, meaningful relationships with your customer base, I would imagine. We've got to do the same thing. So that's how we look at sizing up partnerships and why we might do a few.
I'm going to go to the front to Jimmy Clark since he did raise his hand.
Nancy, this question's for you. Obviously, with there's an increase in electrical vehicles, right? And they talk about there may be a really big increase. What does that do to the power grid and kind of delivery of power if you have, say, crazy 20-30% of people go EV and just start charging at home?
So we've spent a lot of time from a strategy perspective with our board this past June, talking about where is the electricity, where is our industry going in the long term. And one of the things we've looked at and continue to look at is electric vehicles. And we don't actually believe, even with So when we look at the penetration numbers of electric vehicles, we actually don't believe it's going to put much stress on our system or will allow us or actually grow the load very much, because it offset by other efficiencies in terms of electricity generation and other things that we do. So it's interesting, because I would, like you, believe that huge amount of penetration of electric vehicles will really, we should see electricity consumption really go up, but that's not actually what the numbers say, which is interesting.
Okay, go. We're going to take another one.
Nancy, my question's for you. You mentioned the solar projects coming online. Could you give us an idea of, with that quantity of generation, what is the acreage, square miles, and where do we find the land to place the solar panels? Is it centralized or decentralized?
So I don't have the acreage off the top of my head, but in terms of where they're going to be placed, they are in sort of industrial or rural areas in the various 4 counties. We are in the process now, so we haven't really announced where all the different the land is, because we're in the process now of finalizing agreements, which we're very close, but I don't know. I don't know whether Laura or Bill has that acreage number in their head.
We're doing 10 different locations, and it would average about 300 acres per location.
Okay, we'll do one more question. Anybody? We have one all the way in the back. Sorry to make you walk all the way back. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. Last one. Go ahead, Jackie. You had the mic.
Thank you guys all for being here. My question is for John. In regards to you saying the business of academic medicine, I come from both realms, both from business as a CEO and also as a physician. Do you see the implementation of getting basically both integrated is how you're going to get to stop that transactional type medicine?
Yeah, I do. Look, the way you got to look at healthcare going forward, in my opinion, specifically in academic medical centers like TGH, you're creating sort of, what we have to create is a harmonious relationship between my office, the dean's office, our chairs, our administrative and operations people, because each one of us brings a set of skills, a viewpoint, knowledge, expertise that together can be unstoppable, right? And so that's very, very important. I get very nervous when people start viewing the world sort of just one way, through one lens. We don't live in a world like that anymore. With technology and what's happening across the globe, it requires a high degree of teamwork. It requires a level of practicality and trust, particularly in medicine. We've got to change the way medicine is delivered. This will be somewhat provocative to some of you, but I don't think healthcare is broken at all. I think healthcare in our country is operating as designed, and we simply have to change the design. I'm delighted that my colleague over here is using lean. Healthcare has been in that space for decades, re-engineering and reworking the way we do what we do today. So that relationship has to be collaborative. It has to drive innovation. So I do see the future being highly leveraged on a group of people's perspectives around solving issues and really advancing healthcare for all of us.
Very nice. Thank you, guys.